Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone'scriticpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle's CriticsPod. Listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you could rate and review the show, give us a 5-star review, and let us know you did it. We will give you a copy of, or the next one to do it, we'll get a copy of the 4K Blu-ray of I Spit on Your Grave. And we will read your review on the air. And if you want to hear our in-depth conversation about that, along with Sean's sister Amy, one of my favorite episodes we've ever done, you can head over to patreon.com/criticspod to listen to that as well. I do believe we released it on our mainstream as well. But other things we have there are we started doing music stuff over there. We've reviewed Nirvana's Nevermind. Not really reviewed, just kind of talked about it more from a different perspective.
It was like that old Chris Farley sketch where he talked to Paul McCartney and just said, you're so great.
And then at the end of it, it's like, I don't really know this song. And because we couldn't play the music because of copyrights, I guess we could have done that, I guess. But it was all honest and natural. And
yes.
Yeah. And then we did Metallica's Black Album. We're going to be doing a Beatles episode here shortly. I'm excited about that. I've already got my insults to anybody who hates the Beatles lined up ready to go. So patreon.com/criticspod if you want to hear that stuff. A little more unscripted us. Not that we're scripted here, but we have a format that we follow, and there is just kind of we're winging it, and it's kind of fun. And then TeePublic, if you head over to ihatecritics.net, click on our TeePublic page, you can get access to our merch, or go to teepublic.com and search CriticsPod. Sean sent a couple of some artwork. I don't know if we make shirts out of them or not, but they're pretty awesome, so we probably will. Nicolas Cage and Kevin Spacey. Did you do that, or did your cousin do that?
Jeff, that's all
he
Jeff.
Actually did that? Wow.
Yeah.
That was nice of him. Yeah, we need to start pushing that a little harder, and we will eventually. But we do have some great stuff over there. Willem Dafoe, Cameron Diaz, some fun. Cameron Diaz's shoulder, inside jokes from the longtime listeners, and just funny looking T-shirts to begin with. So it's a lot of fun.
And soon, like we were just saying, we will entirely replace the legacy of Kevin Spacey with Nicolas Cage.
Yes. All right. Let's jump into the heart of our show. Oh, we are live on YouTube. If you want to listen to us or watch us live, we will post it on our social media platforms whenever we go live. We don't have a scheduled recording, usually Sundays, Mondays, or Tuesdays, depending on when we're both available. But for now, let's go ahead and start the show. And let's start with the House of Gucci, or our House of Gucci. And I know we're going to get to a Ridley Scott movie as a classic, but we're going to lead with this because this is the big movie of the week.
Indeed, yeah, because I didn't see Encanto and I didn't see Resident Evil. It's just I'm staying away from the kids' movies for now. I'll watch it prior to awards, probably because part of the gig there, but I just don't have time for kids' movies these days. This is the big title of the week. Directed by Ridley Scott, the story of one of the Gucci scions who was murdered by his wife. She hired somebody to kill her. So this is a part biography and part true crime story. Lady Gaga is this social climbing woman who meets this Adam Driver's character, who is the next in line to take over at the Gucci fashion house. He's the son of Jeremy Irons. Al Pacino is his uncle, who also has a son played by Jared Leto, who's a total fuck up and has no future in the company, though they just kind of tolerate him. And that's pretty much the story. We don't really. The thing about this is that it vacillates in tone very wildly from some soap opera drama to high camp, and it really can't find a lane where it wants to be. Like, Adam Driver is delivering a pretty earnest performance, as is Lady Gaga, but then you have Al Pacino and Jared Leto over here in an SNL parody at times in the way it goes. You've got Jared Leto talking like Mario, and, just the kind of all the Italian stereotypes you can think of. Although I have seen people praise him, and they say that this guy was this kind of outlandish. So who knows? Maybe it's dead on. It just seemed kind of silly to me. Especially when he got in front of Pacino, and especially in a scene where it's him and Jeremy Irons, and Jeremy Irons looks like he hates this guy, which I know is part of the character, but it also just seemed very, very real. It seemed very real just how much Jeremy Irons hated Jared Leto. And so there's kind of a thrill there, but the thrills in this one are very hit and miss. Like Adam Driver, I think is doing his damnedest to make this work. He really wants this to be genuine, and he's delivering a very serious performance. But the accent also kind of silly and doesn't quite work on him either. And Lady Gaga is almost veering into Russian at times in her speech. She's also very serious though, and you do buy into what her character is doing. In the end, it's just far too much of a mixed bag to be at all satisfying. It's not quite as exciting as a true crime thriller should be. It's not as funny as a high camp, comedy satire should be. And it just sort of lays there at times.
Yeah, I did not get to it. I kept trying to make time, but my son had a big homework project. Basically, had a book report to do, and we had to read most of the book over the weekend. And we went a little too hard for a 10-year-old. Anyway, kept me from seeing this one. That said, I have read a handful of reviews. For the most part, this is pretty well reviewed from what I've read. They say a lot of what you say, but they actually like that part of it. And I don't know if they're bringing stuff to it because this is such a rich family and their life is so stupid and silly that, combining the drama and the parody and not really knowing which is they're acting like that's intentional and that it's all a metaphor and this and blah, blah, blah. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. They're saying the same thing you are. They're just saying it's good because of it. And you're saying it's bad because of it. So either way, it is what it is. If you hear Ridley Scott on Mark Maron's podcast, it's pretty fun. At the very beginning, Mark Maron says, Ridley really loves his movies. Even the ones that you're like, I don't know if that's very good. He loves it. This is like right before he's going to launch to the interview. And I was like, that's pretty funny. A little shot at Ridley Scott before he goes. And I don't know. He loved this movie. Both Maron and at least Maron pretended to. I don't know. I'm still kind of interested, but at the same time, the more I read about it, the more I kind of lose interest. Even with the good reviews that I have read, it's not. I don't feel like it's going to blow me away either way. It's just kind of a movie at this point. And as much as I like Ridley Scott for the most part, he does have movies that just kind of hang out there that don't quite work all the way. And this kind of feels like it probably is something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it might hang around for the awards. There's rumors that Lady Gaga could get into the Best Actress race, which would make this movie last longer. It also, in terms of movies aimed at an older audience, it did pretty well at the box office, taking in $14 million. So there's a chance this movie sticks around for a little while and still finds some curious people for it. I could not get into it. I couldn't get past the accents. I couldn't get past whether or not it's intended to be funny or not. It's so often I can't tell. Right. And you look at these people right here in this poster that if you're watching on YouTube, and tell me that doesn't look kind of like an SNL parody, just a little bit. You've seen Adam Driver wear that hair on SNL. You have.
Well, right, and if you throw out Jeremy Irons and Al Pacino and put in SNL characters, it would look like, because Jared Leto could be anybody. I agree. And
why did they make Jared Leto look like Jeffrey Tambor?
That's exactly what the guy looks like. And you know how Jared Leto is, so I don't know. I have, while reading positive reviews, it does seem like universally the Last Duel is liked better from what I've read and seen.
Absolutely. That's a really great movie.
And it's a shame that one is considered a failure at this point, which I think is stupid as hell.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned it last week about what Ridley Scott said. I got to hear it more in context. And it's not, as a headline, it sounds silly. In context, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
He's not wrong, but at the same time, it's like, don't say it. Sometimes you just got to take your lumps and move on.
It's not like it's not like saying it's going to sell the movie at all.
Right.
But are you going to shame kids into going to see The Last Duel?
Kids just don't want to learn anything anymore. And again, there's more context
it's a marketing
to it.
failure. It was a marketing failure. They didn't market the movie right. They didn't really give people a better sense of what that movie was really about. And that's where that failed. It wasn't the kids going, I don't want to see that movie with those big stars. People love Adam Driver. It was a marketing failure.
Yeah, they love all three of them. And
Matt Damon maybe a little less lately, but yeah.
Well, but that's the thing too, though, is that's the crowd that would have liked this movie. The people that have kind of turned on Matt Damon lately, because it does speak to where he's screwing up. I think the movie and the woke section, which I hate using that word, but for lack of a better word at the moment, that crowd would have loved Last Duel if they watched it, despite some of the dumb shit Matt Damon said. But I don't know. I love that movie, so
I do too.
To talk about it one more time. Anything else on House of Gucci?
Not really. I don't see it. I don't want it to stick around. I don't hate it. I just don't care. I'd like it to see it just fade away. It's not important. There are so many better movies out there than this.
Yeah, I just have a feeling a lot of those better movies aren't even to be thought of at the end, other than maybe like Nicolas Cage and
the best movies of the year are already entirely forgotten by everyone who isn't us.
Right.
Do you think anybody's going to talk about The Killing of Two Lovers at the end of the year? No. Except me and you.
Right.
And I mentioned Giants being lonely to other critics the other day, and they're like, what?
What is that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'll never be thought of again. And it's a shame. I mean...
Oh, it is.
And Lamb will be something that's just kind of... it won't be forgotten about, but it will just not make the list at the end. It's what it always... All those great A24 movies. I
did get a message from A24 about an Academy screening, so... Good luck. Go for
Lamb?
It. Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
They're going to try.
It deserves
Absolutely,
it.
It does.
They should always... I mean, they should usually have 2 or 3 considered every year. Let's see. What do we got next? Oops. Halle Berry's directorial debut, Bruised.
Bruised stars Halle Berry as a former UFC star who had a pretty significant freak out in her last fight. She jumped over the fence that lines the UFC ring and ran away. And after that, her life kind of went in the toilet. She couldn't go back to fighting, so she just kind of languished for several years. Her life is completely thrown for a loop when she finds out that the father of her long ago child has died, and the child is now hers, and she's got to take him in and take care of him, something that neither she or her abusive boyfriend are prepared to do in any way. They're both kind of alcoholics, and she's got no prospects. She's just lost her job, and it's just looking very, very bleak when this occurs. Then she gets into a kind of an unsanctioned fight in middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, and it's captured, surrounded by a crowd, and a producer or promoter, whatever they call him, sees her do that and invites her to come back into the ring, thinking that, well, hey, a comeback story, I can make a few bucks off of that. And she does kind of go back into it, and she starts building her life again, building up towards a championship fight that this guy is going to get her, and indeed that does happen. This is a terrible movie. It's borderline unwatchable. Aside from Halle Berry, I mean, she's very earnest and very believable. She's a great actress, and she sells some of these moments. But there is just, as a director, she doesn't quite know how to build a story. So she kind of has these very large beats that are playing far too soon. And crescendos that are happening. And then you look at the runtime and you go, there's still 40 minutes of this movie and you just ended it. There's a fight scene that just lasts forever, and it just doesn't really it leads to, you know, a very, I don't know, a wannabe Rocky ending. And that doesn't quite sit well. But none of this movie sat well with me. I was angry during this movie, and just the way she's not a bad director either. Like, she knows how to, you know, put everything in the right frame, but I think the edit did her no favors, and trying to jam in as many things as she did. There's this forced sort of lesbian romance thing that goes absolutely nowhere and completely derails the only really great performance in the movie for no good reason. And in the end, that ends up going nowhere. And I don't know. She tried to do way too much with this, and it just comes up very well short because of that.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you could edit this movie properly and make it decent, because that's the problem with it. Is it's you know, for the most part, we tend to praise passion projects. In this scenario, it's definitely a passion project for Halle Berry, but and I'm trying to say this in the nicest way possible. She was in over her head. She, like you said, she put way too much into it. It's story-wise, and I know she didn't write it. Michelle Rosenfarb or whatever. I'm looking at this poster on YouTube. She wrote it, and I don't know, you know, where that between her, Halle Berry, and the editor, what, you know, whose fault it was. But again, this is her first directorial debut, and everything. I mean, I appreciate her effort, but, you know, the wannabe Rocky ending, you know, just don't even say who wins, because at that point you're better off.
She already achieved what the character needed to achieve from that, so it didn't really matter.
You cut out the lesbian romance altogether, and I understand what she's going for, trying to make, you know, she's definitely thinking about Monsters Ball when she makes this movie. She's thinking about other, you know, great movies, and just trying to cram too much into them, and, you know, combining all these different movies into one. And a lot of times less is more, and this movie would have definitely benefited from being less.
I mean, the kid thing is almost an entirely different movie at times, because I know she needs the kid to provide the motivation to get her to fight, but realistically, where she was in an abusive relationship, 5 years out of the ring, making a comeback, there's plenty of story there.
There was enough.
Then you add the kid thing on top of it. It just kind of, it's too much. It's misery porn at a certain point, where everything is just so miserable in her life that it becomes sort of exploitative of just how bad things are in her life.
But, and I mean, like you mentioned in our little text, there's a montage in it, which
you got a punishing montage.
And, like, again, it's just cramming too much into one thing. And even if you left,
that montage was like 5 minutes long. I mean, they got in the entirety of whatever that Beyonce song or whatever that was.
This is, what was it, 2.5 hours, 2:20 or something like that?
Yeah.
It needed
way
to be
too long.
It needed to be 90 minutes, 100 minutes tops. If you could get it down to 90 minutes, I'd like to give it another shot. Because you know, I like to, when people take on a passion project and try something new, and I do think there's a lot good here, but the collective is like the internet troll in me wants to make fun of her for, trying and failing. But, that's wrong, because there is a good effort. There's a lot here that is good. Like you mentioned the performance from her trainer. She was awesome in this movie. But there's just too much. And we keep going back to that. And I know it's turning into a broken record, but I
it's the truth, though, and you're right. There are good things here. The fight sequence isn't bad. It's not bad at all. But it goes on for way too long, and where it arrives in the story, it should have arrived right after the montage. You need to go from the montage into the fight, not into another series of melodramatic, downward spiral stuff like the lesbian romance, which comes off like she was really sad, so she had sex with a woman, which is not
what
a good look.
No,
it's not a good look at all. Not a good look at all. Some have even called it queer baiting, which I don't disagree with. It's almost like trying to be so woke that you've included I'm having sex with women now. Like that's kind of how this comes off, and I know that's not the intent.
No.
It's just kind of how it comes off when you slap it in where you do, because again, we should have gone from the montage to the fight, and they don't. There's another 30 minutes between the montage and the fight, and it's anger inducing having that happen that way.
Yeah, I think she's trying to be artistic with that scene, and it's just not. It's not. And the other thing that this movie suffers from is that Halle Berry, maybe she's not an A-list actor anymore, but she's so well known that her as a star than her as a director, it's hard to. And again, this is the viewer's fault, but her performance, I can't tell if she's trying too hard or she's great. That was something I struggled with the whole time, but I feel like that was me and her celebrity that was making that difficult. Then you throw in the runtime, and it was just like, God, I wish that they'd take this back to the editing room, knock out 45, 50 minutes, and give it back to me and see what it looks like. But
I think it would be relatively easy to fix this because I don't think she's, like I said, anything. Yeah, exactly. I think she's got the elements here that work. I think as a director, she does have a strong visual sensibility. Like she's not an amateur behind the camera at all. Mm-hmm. I thought the fight scene was very well choreographed. I thought, as was the overlong montage. It's the stuff that she had to include in between all that. This desire to do too much that really is the downfall of the movie.
I will say, when they got to the fight scene, it kind of brought me back into the movie again, but not enough. I mean, and then when it ended, it was just kind of like, you're doing Rocky, and it's not fair because not just Rocky has done that ending. Bad News Bears. I mean, several movies have done it, but.
Right.
You got to try something new there. Let her win, maybe, or whatever you got to do. I don't care. But you're right. It was very well done, and it kind of was entertaining for me for a few minutes. But when all was said and done, it was just overall just kind of a bummer. I wanted to ask you about it, but at the same time, I wanted you to see it first. And as soon as you sent me the text, I was like, okay, he's kind of where I'm at.
Can I just a technical question about this movie? Why did she have the booze in the spray bottle? She has this spray bottle that she fills with booze, and she squirts it into her mouth. And meanwhile, her boyfriend, manager guy, is also an alcoholic who clearly isn't judging her for drinking. He knows it's there. So why is she shamefully hiding it in a spray bottle? That was a totally unnecessary inclusion. She must have just thought, this sounds like a really great idea, but she didn't think of how that would look from a logical perspective, because there's alcohol all over their house. She literally takes alcohol from her boyfriend and pours it into the spray bottle, hoping not to wake him up, because apparently he doesn't want her drinking. He's as drunk as she is in the movie, and maybe drunker. So it didn't make any sense.
And then they spend too much time going back to it later on.
Yeah.
So it's just more time filler that could have been cut.
he wasn't a good character. He wasn't a good person. He wasn't going to get upset that him being upset that she's drinking is just him being an even worse character because he's a hypocrite. And he's already a bad guy.
Yeah, and his character just wasn't, like you said, he wasn't a good character, but he wasn't a good character on two different levels. Like, he wasn't a good person as a character, right, but the character also wasn't fleshed out very well.
Very
and
true.
If they would have spent more time on that, and which again, I bet you they have all the footage, or you could cut stuff off to probably, you probably got enough there to go into that and make it a better fleshed out character. But that's part of the problem with the movie is him, and it's not his performance either. It's just the editing. Basically, it looks like they didn't edit anything. They just kept everything they shot.
But her alleged alcoholism is not dealt with at all. She just decides, I'm not going to drink anymore because I've got a son now, and that's it. she's just done with it. But the spray bottle, she didn't empty the spray bottle, and her husband grabs it and shows it to her and says she's a hypocrite. She still drinks. I don't know. It was such a mess. That opening 25 minutes setting up for the kid is just a complete mess.
Yeah, you didn't even need to tell us she was an alcoholic. We figured it out on our own. So you can just leave that storyline out of there, and we can just, sometimes that stuff's left better untold. And when you do it right, that's actually pretty cool when you don't have to tell the audience what's going on. You can just tell.
That's almost always better to visually demonstrate something rather than just openly telling people.
It's hard to do and pull it off a lot of times, but that could have been done here. It's just
Ari Aster murdered two people in his movie without a single line of dialogue. He didn't tell you what you were looking at. You just had to visually watch and see, oh my God, they're fucking dead.
Yep. Anything else on Bruised? I feel like we went as long as the movie did on it.
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
All right. Drive My Car.
Drive My Car is a film by Ryosuke Hamaguchi. It is a film starring Hidetoshi Nishijima. He plays a actor who's married to a writer, and they've been married for a number of years. They lost a child several years ago, and it kind of did a great deal of damage to their relationship. But they've begun, as the movie begins, they've begun to rebuild their relationship in a very unusual way. They've begun having sex again, but part of their sex is her telling him a story that she's working on, this very aggressive and transgressive story about a teenage girl who breaks into the home of the boy she has a crush on and wanders around his house and spends time in his room and has this thing where she takes something from his room and leaves something of her own, something like a tampon, like a used tampon. Like, yeah, exactly. She's telling this story as they're having sex or after they're having sex. And it builds this bond between them again that they thought they'd kind of lost, and they're kind of in love again based off of this. And he's riveted. He wants to hear this story. He also likes having sex with her, but so he also wants to hear this story. And he loves how this is bringing out this whole new romantic side of her. And then she dies. And a whole other story begins, like literally 25 minutes into the movie, we get the credits. And a whole other movie is starting because he's off to Hiroshima, where he's going to be a play director. He's going to direct a performance of Uncle Vanya, and he's going to choose the cast and how it's performed and oversee all of that. And there he sets about this new relationship with this woman who is assigned as his driver, who he didn't want to have a driver, but they forced him to have it for various different reasons. And so they begin to, there's not a romance. She's much, much younger than him. He's in his mid 40s. She's in her early 20s. It's not romantic, mostly because she would be the exact same age as the daughter he lost several years ago. So that's completely off the table. But with that off the table, you get this even deeper, more meaningful father-daughter sort of relationship, or at the very least, a very close friendship. And that's what drives the final act of the movie. It's incredibly beautiful. But this whole thing is incredibly beautiful. There are so many wonderful twists and turns. The way they use Uncle Vanya and the way that other people's art can bring something out of you. At one point, he's advising the young actor who is playing his Uncle Vanya how Chekhov, the writer Chekhov, his work reveals the actor. And you have to have something inside of you to perform Chekhov, because you're going to have to lay that out for the audience. And the young actor says, I don't think I have anything in me. And it is devastating and beautiful. And it's a moment. And there's so many great moments here. To talk about this in comparison to something like Bruised, this movie is 3 hours long, and it does not feel 3 hours long. It is so beautiful and meditative and inviting and engaging. I just adore this movie.
That sounds awesome. When is it available to be seen?
It should be available right now. I thought it was available this week.
Oh, I tried. I mean, I guess I didn't try horribly hard. Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to mark that one because that sounds fantastic. I'm assuming
really
one of the
is.
Best of the year.
Absolutely, it is. It's right up there in the top 10. It's just so good. These characters are wonderful. The storytelling is ingenious, unexpected, consistently surprising. But yeah, I adore it.
This got a shot at Best Foreign Film?
Absolutely, I think it does. I believe it did either it won or it finished second at Cannes.
That's
so
awesome.
it's a highly recommended movie.
I'm looking forward to that one. All right, what about Punch 9 for Harold Washington?
Punch 9 for Harold Washington is a fascinating documentary about the former mayor of Chicago, Harold Washington, who was happily a very kind of a congressman who just enjoyed being a congressman, and he didn't feel like he needed to do anything else. He was doing relatively well in Washington, but he kept looking back at Chicago and seeing what was happening and kind of getting drawn back to it, especially after Richard J. Daley died in 1976. Daley ran Chicago from the late 50s all the way to his death in 1976. And then he was replaced by this woman who came in on this wave of support from the Black community, promising to do all of these amazing things for the Black community. And the second she got in there, she's like, oh, hey, the Daley machine's still here. I'm just going to go with that now. Screw all you people who put me here. I'm going to get in the machine and maintain my power. And that lasted until the 1983, when she finally comes up against Harold Washington, who comes into the race and is not expected to win. And what you find when you're watching this is that, Chicago has a reputation for being the most liberal democratic city on the planet. And yet it was at this point one of the single most racist places on the planet. So remarkably hateful that you're almost shocked. Like, it's Boston levels of hate that are going on in this city. To the point where just people are openly calling Harold Washington the N-word as he's about to become the next mayor of Chicago. It's stunning to watch. There's so many unique, and this is like a great dollop episode really to be made here. The Dollop podcast can do some amazing things with this. At one point, the woman who was mayor prior to Harold Washington thought it'd be a great idea for her to move into Cabrini Green. She got herself an apartment in Cabrini Green and thought, this is great. This is how I'm going to connect with the people. Never mind that she had armed security guards and a limo to take her to and from Cabrini Green every day. No, I'm relating to the people. Such an absolute shocking embarrassment, but there are really just so many shocking and embarrassing things. There's an amazing story about his first day as mayor, where he goes to his first city council meeting and he doesn't know the rules of how city council work. So he thinks that if he ends the meeting, that the meeting's over. But you actually have to have in a city council meeting, you actually have to have a majority agree that the meeting is over. So he gavelled the meeting to a close, walked out with his people, and then they just continued the meeting without him. And they appointed all of their people and made it even harder for him to do his job. The complete and utter disgusting racism that he faced down, but he did it. And eventually he was very successful. Even as with all of this against him, he did turn it around until his shocking death in 1989. And then, of course, we know Chicago goes right back down the hill without him.
Yeah, this sounds fascinating. I definitely am interested in watching this too.
Yeah, it's so many wonderful, unique stories about this documentary.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even want to get into everywhere we could go with this. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching that one as well. Is it available to anywhere for free, or is it just Amazon to rent?
I think you have to go to the actual documentary's website to find out how to watch it, because I don't know if it even has a distributor yet.
Oh, cool. All right. And the Shuroo Process.
The Shuroo Process stars Fiona Dourif, the daughter of Brad Dourif, as a reporter who has a lot of problems. She's cost herself her job through her drinking and drugs and behavior. She decides that the way she's going to try and turn her life around is to go to this retreat with this guy who calls himself the Shuroo. And he's just this English white guy who talks a big game about inner peace and so on. And she kind of begins to set about figuring out whether he's a fraud or not. And she's kind of in her head, she's writing the story that she's going to write about him, and maybe he's real, maybe he actually helps people, maybe he's a scam artist. You're going to have to figure that out as the story goes along. The problem is that this movie just doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be a movie where people are having big, important revelations about their life and finding new paths in life and improving themselves, or if it's a comedy about this guy who's completely full of shit who's claiming to be a guru. And that's really what kind of sinks the movie. Fiona Dourif is a very unique actress. She's got the same kind of energy that her dad has. She's completely unpredictable, and that makes her very charismatic and engaging. You don't know what she's going to do next, and that's a very exciting place to be as an actor. And sadly, it's all for nothing, because the movie isn't particularly funny and it's not particularly dramatic. So in the end, it's two different diverging tones that never come together.
Yeah, I know we talked about this. I totally forgot about it till today, so I didn't watch this one either. I ended up basically what I watched this week outside of the classic and the Bruised, one of the 91 movies, and then Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, my son and I slept in the living room and put on. I'm going to sound like a terrible parent. I haven't done this in a long time. We watched basketball. And, this is like putting on at 10 o'clock at night and did not fall asleep. And I was like, you know what? We'll put American or Almost Famous on and we'll fall asleep to that. Well, Almost Famous is so good, you can't fall asleep to that. So next thing you know, it's 3:30 in the morning and we're still awake. And so I sent him to his room and I watched Gas Station Girls from 1976. And that knocked me out. Just kidding.
Never heard of that movie.
Amazon Prime, free right now. All right. I didn't really get very far into it. The girl's uncle dies. He owns a gas station. Now she has to take it over. And it's losing to the big gas station next door, so they somehow have to.
So they do a big topless garage sale, or
I didn't get that far, but I'm assuming that's where it went. I needed something to help me fall asleep. Anyway, let's move on to our undisputed classic, The Duelist, Ridley Scott's first feature-length movie.
The Duelists from 1978, starring Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel. Keith Carradine is a well-regarded soldier who is sent on an errand by a general to go confront this General Farad, played by Harvey Keitel. He is, as we've previously seen in a duel, he's nearly killed a man who happens to be the son of the local mayor of Strasbourg, where they are located at this time. They are members of the French army under Napoleon. So he's sent to confront Farad and tell him that he's confined to his quarters and set to be arrested for what he did. Farad takes this as an insult and sets about trying to duel Carradine's character, Dubert. And this sets off a lifelong feud between them that will culminate with several different sword fights over the years, duels that will nearly kill each of them on different occasions. This is a movie that is incredibly ahead of its time when you think about it, because without even trying, it's about toxic masculinity and this idea of manhood and what it means to be a man and have honor and nonsense like that that ends up convincing men to kill each other for no good reason. There is no good reason for either of these guys. At a certain point, each of them seems to forget why it is they hate each other to begin with.
Right.
And Carradine never really hated Farad, or Dubert never really hated Farad from the beginning. He was just doing his job and got drawn into this guy's nonsense. But out of a sense of honor and defending his own masculinity, he has to go along with this and continue the fight. And as many times as he thinks he's out of it, he keeps getting pulled back into it. That said, I mean, it's a great looking movie. And like I said, I think it's critical of that mindset. It's not openly critical of that mindset, but I think it is, in a way, intended to be critical of that mindset. And so in that way, I do think that it is ahead of its time in that way. And the sword fights are incredible. The violence is incredible. The cinematography is amazing. This is a really incredible debut film.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. At first, I got a little bored, but as it got going, it definitely kept ramping up for me, and I got more and more involved in it. I was really quite impressed. And, you know, really, if you look at Ridley Scott, he definitely has kind of taken this kind of tone more than once in his career. Maybe not the toxic masculinity, but definitely he's gone feminist a few times, several different times. A lot of strong leading women in his movies.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool concept that he was, from even the get-go, was... I don't know that he was going for that, but I definitely think it's something he was annoyed by. And I think that's just really cool. I was really impressed with this movie, and quite frankly, it was like, this should have been a classic when we did The Last Duel. Made so much sense.
Yeah. I wish you'd have thought of that.
And I guess when again, Ridley Scott was on Maron's podcast, and when Matt Damon came to him with the script for The Last Week, was like, no, you already did The Duelist, but hear me out. And yeah, and I don't know, I was really, really impressed with how this movie just keeps building on itself, and I don't know, just in a very well-made, entertaining way. I just really, good.
It's a very patient film. Like, it does allow time for these characters to breathe and to, you know, have lives. At least Dubert's character certainly does take on a life, whereas Farad seems to be kind of eating himself alive with this obsession with having this duel and seeming to want to die in a duel eventually. And this movie is very critical of that mindset of both these men, allowing themselves to end up where they end up, considering all the privilege that they have. They can't, like, at a certain point, it kind of turns on Carradine's character, and he becomes somewhat, he rescues Keitel's character on two different occasions, even though he knows that he's still this is going to continue their fight, which he seems to want to end, but he ends up saving him anyway. And it's because of honor. I have to keep up my honor.
And it's
just code. It's just code for, you know, I've got to continue to prove what a man I am.
But I mean, basically what you're describing would work great in like a Monty Python or a Mel Brooks kind of a movie, and that it's not funny.
Right.
But at the same, I don't know. It was interesting. I mean, this went from what I perceived to be homework, which again, I shouldn't have thought that with Ridley Scott. He doesn't really make homework. But that's what I thought we were getting into. And then it just kind of gradually got more and more interesting. And I don't know. It's really, really cool and interesting. And
it borders sometimes on absurd, which I loved.
Right.
The absurdity of the violence and the absurdity of continuing the violence and continuing the feud. It borders on comical. I think there was a movie that did something like that. And I'm probably just thinking of the Black Knight and Monty Python.
Right,
it just never gives up. That's Harvey Keitel. that's Keitel's character essentially is the Black Knight.
But at the same time, it's just, I don't know. I bought it. I wasn't pulled out of the movie. It worked in the context of what was going on, and I was just really, really impressed and kind of glad I got to see it, because I would have never watched this movie on my own. So I'm very happy that I got to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm surprised I never watched it before, but it's just one of those things that's been out there for a very long time, and I just never thought to watch.
All right. Briefly, we'll run through 1991. I watched Hearts of Darkness for the first time. I know I've wanted to see it for years. It's the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, and I thought this was fascinating too. The whole thing, just an artist trying to grasp what it's like being an artist and not trying to sound pretentious, but then being pretentious. I don't know. Just interesting, neat. Martin Sheen has a heart attack in it. Marlon Brando's the pretentious asshole. Dennis Hopper has no business being in the movie. It was just really, really interesting. A movie probably never went through so much chaos as this did, and they caught it all on camera. So I definitely recommend, if you ever get a chance to see this movie.
It's fascinating, and there's a certain bravery to Francis Ford Coppola to allow himself to be seen as he's seen here, and part of that, of course, I think his wife directed this.
Yes,
and so I think that's part of why he was so willing to be so this character in front of the camera, be captured in the way he is. In all of his hypocrisy at times. It's a naked sort of thing, and I do appreciate just how much that must have been very hard for him to see when he did watch this. That's really what makes this so exciting, is just how bold it is in that way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's some of the shit he says is embarrassing. And Marlon Brando comes off as just the biggest tool in the history of tools in this. But I don't know. It just, and Dennis Hopper. I mean, everything I said already. I definitely think if you're into movies at all, this is a must for movie buffs to see this movie. I know in Good Will Hunting they borrowed a line from this movie when Casey Affleck says I swallowed a bug. A scene where Marlon Brando says it. I don't know. I was quite intrigued the entire time.
I mean, it's easy to look back now and see that you've taken on all of this crazy in one place, in a place that's far cut off from the rest of the world. What did you expect would happen? Well, it's easy to say that now. I don't think you could say that then.
Well, the funny part is, originally George Lucas was going to direct it. They were going to go to Vietnam in the middle of Vietnam and make this movie. And Lucas and the film company was like, yeah, that's not a good idea. So they already were starting from a ridiculous point of view from before they even,
crazy plans.
Yeah. So.
You have just these characters, this Dennis Hopper, and then you got John Milius in there too, who's equal. He's just as crazy as everybody else, if not crazier.
Yeah. But
John Milius, that rumored to be the inspiration for Walter in The Big Lebowski.
really,
One of them. Yeah.
yeah. And then there's My Girl. When we were kids, when Macaulay Culkin gets stung by the bees, it made us cry.
He needs his glasses. Where are his glasses?
We were
I'm making the entire audience cry right now.
Oh, we don't have.
You say the line to a member of Generation X, they start to tear up immediately.
I'm gonna go try that on my wife later. She's barely Gen X. She's like the last year of Gen X, but we'll see if it works. I mean, this movie, we watched this with my kids like a year ago, and it made her tear
How'd they
up
take
again.
it?
They were fine. Because they're not Gen X. They're one's Gen Z, the other one's whatever was after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked when I saw it way back when. Now I kind of laugh and it's fun and funny and it's funny when he dies. But I don't know. It was kind of had an American Tail vibe to me, where that song was sad when I was a kid and that scene was sad.
Yeah.
But now I've seen too many movies and there's nothing sad anymore.
You've got a very large callus, a very large My Girl shaped callus now.
Yep. All right. That is our show. We will get to Flick Chart in a moment. Next week we got Hand of God, The Power of the Dog. You said Wolf Maybe.
Maybe.
Vendetta, The Scary 61st, Death of a Telemarketer, Project Space 13. Is that what it's called? Sphere 13, maybe? My handwriting sucks. Our classic is Piano. In 1991, we have a Play in the Field of Love and Star Trek 6 Undiscovered Country, so most likely you will not hear us talk about those movies next week. And let's see what Flick Chart has to offer.
Yes.
All right. Ghost Rider or The Green Mile?
It's Green Mile, I guess. Ghost Rider's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Not in a fun way either.
I've never actually seen it. In and Out, Days of Thunder.
I like In and Out, but Days of Thunder is a lot of fun for me. I've got a weird nostalgia for it, so I'm going to go with that one.
It's fine. I don't remember In and Out. Enemy at the Gates, Save the Last Dance.
Save the Last Dance.
Absolutely. Ambushed, Castaway.
I don't know Ambushed.
Neither do I. American Werewolf in London, Castaway.
Castaway.
Yeah, you know who's also turning into like a Dustin Hoffman for me is Landis. He kind of annoys me a little bit too.
Yeah, I can see that.
Get Shorty, Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace.
Get Shorty. I don't hate the Phantom Menace though.
Walking Tall 2004 or The Golem.
The Golem.
You seen it?
It's been a while. I would say I can't really say that I've seen it. I guess.
All right. Walking Tall, Romeo Must Die.
Walking Tall.
Multiplicity, Blue Thunder.
Multiplicity. It's so stupid, but Blue Thunder is boring. And Blue Thunder is boring with helicopters. So what does that say?
It's not possible. Being John Malkovich, Predators.
It's Being John Malkovich, but I like Predators.
Yeah, but that's not really a fair comparison. Monsters Ball, Godfather Part 2.
Monsters Ball is incredible, but it's Godfather Part 2.
Yeah, it's one of the best of all time. Shrek the Third, Solaris.
Solaris.
I might make a fight for Shrek 1, but... Twister, Event Horizon.
I don't think that's the right Twister. I don't know if we've seen the 1989 Twister.
You have not. You are correct. I didn't see the year until... this isn't fair. Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, or Event Horizon.
Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation.
And since I haven't gone back and watched Event Horizon since we talked about it when it turned, or not, hasn't turned 30 yet, since we talked about it, we made it a classic one episode, didn't we?
Something like that.
I won't pick it, but
I thought it was a Christmas present. Maybe that's why we talked about it.
Well, I never watched it. Whenever we did it, I didn't watch it, and because I knew Josh hated it, and I wanted to watch it, I just ran out of time. But if I'm not going to make the effort, I can't flip a coin over it. I'll make that deal.
I really want to see the Devil Doll. That looks really interesting, but I don't think either of us has seen either of those movies.
Perfect. So, Death Becomes Her, The Jackal. Who cares?
Jackal's not bad, and Death Becomes Her is not completely terrible. I don't know. You hate them both?
I don't hate them both. I'm just not a big Bruce Willis guy anymore.
Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, Meryl Streep's better than Richard Gere. Rocky 2, Halloween H2O.
Rocky 2.
Yeah.
H2O is not bad, though.
Really?
I don't hate H2O. I thought I was actually, when I saw H2O the first time, I really liked it.
That's
the
cool.
retconning afterwards, made it kind of suck a little bit, but
Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, Home Alone.
Oh, Home Alone by a lot.
Castaway, Men of Honor.
Castaway.
Shorter. Elizabeth, the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Is that the Fincher? I think that's the Fincher
That's
version.
the Fincher dragon tattoo. What's Elizabeth? I've never heard of that.
Elizabeth, it's Kate Blanchett as Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, I guess I've never seen that poster before.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. It's Elizabeth. I think Elizabeth's an incredible, underrated movie. Not that I don't love Dragon Tattoo. It's very good, but it's kind of more in the line of the Benjamin Button Fincher movies than it is on the Seven side of the Fincher movies.
Right, and it's a Fincher movie that didn't need to exist because the other ones are perfectly fine by themselves. Jaws 2, White Chicks.
Jaws 2. I hate White Chicks. I hate it so much.
I've never seen either, so I don't have a... Pet Cemetery, Jackass the movie.
Jackass the movie.
Hate Pet Cemetery so much. Oh, this is fun. Basic Instinct, Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo.
Gonna argue with your idea of fun. Basic Instinct, because Deuce Bigelow's somehow worse.
North by Northwest or The Ref.
North by Northwest, but we need to get Nicolas Cage's face onto Kevin Spacey in The Ref roster. That would have been an interesting movie. Dennis Leary and Nicolas Cage going back and forth. That'd have been something.
Yeah, I mean Dennis Leary is kind of a one-note, Hicks ripoff. But I like him. I would have watched it, I suppose. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. But I like Romy and Michelle as well.
Lady in the Water, Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Yep. Topsy Turvy, Ocean's 12.
I've somehow never seen Topsy Turvy. I should have, but I didn't see it.
Works for me. Kingdom of Heaven, Ocean's 12.
Ocean's 12. Good God, Kingdom of Heaven is terrible.
Lady Bird, Men of Honor.
Lady Bird.
I never thought Men of Honor is literally a movie I saw that never thought about again until today.
Yeah, agreed. It's a dad movie. It's an incredible dad movie. Oh, you have to be at least 60 to enjoy Men of Honor.
It's a dad movie.
If you're not 60.
I saw it at midnight. I used to work at Hardee's, and then my friends and I would go to the movies every Friday and Saturday night. And we couldn't get there till midnight because we closed. And by the time we got to the Quad Cities, we'd go see the movie. And Men of Honor we're big De Niro fans, so we're like, this could be great. I watched that at midnight.
You were asleep before it was over.
I fought. Manhattan Paranormal Activity 4.
Manhattan.
Yes. Waiting, Be Kind, Rewind.
Where do you come down on this one?
Probably Waiting. I don't love either one of them.
I'm kind of on the side of Be Kind, Rewind just because I use the terminology sweeting pretty regularly. That's pretty become a go-to reference for me. So I kind of have a real big soft spot for that movie.
Yeah.
And Waiting, I don't feel like it holds up very well.
And I haven't gone back to watch it. I worked in the food industry, so not that any of that stuff I ever witnessed, but I could relate to some of the. And plus, I don't know. I don't know if I like Ryan Reynolds better than Jack Black. I like them both a lot. Let's just flip.
Let George decide.
Be Kind, Rewind, Tales. Serpico Coneheads.
I know it's Serpico, but I watch Coneheads so many times. It is the biggest guilty pleasure for me.
I not say anything bad about Coneheads, but Serpico's I really like.
Serpico, yeah.
Let's move out of here before I accidentally choose that. Step Brothers, The Sandlot.
Two remarkably overrated movies. The Sandlot.
Isn't it fun when you stop judging the movie and you just start judging the crowd that watches it? Judge Dredd 95, Candyman.
Candyman.
Yeah. Junior, I'm not going to do a stand-up special. Junior or Spartacus?
Spartacus.
You want to know what I don't know why this reminded me of Dune. But a lady at work goes, I think I like the 1984 version better than the new one. It's like, how is that even possible? Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you.
A Ghost Story, The Switchblade Sisters.
I've never seen Switchblade Sisters, but that that title makes me want to see it.
Yeah, I kind of want to hang that poster on my wall. Ghost Story, Final Destination.
I'm gonna have to turn in my my high-minded movie critic card because I don't like a ghost story, and I'm gonna pick Final Destination.
You and Josh have me so turned off to the point where I don't even want to give it a chance. I know I should, just because some people like it, and it is A24, but it seems so boring.
It does. It so does.
Have you seen Dimensions of Dialogue?
No, I've never heard of it.
Avengers Infinity War, Monster.
Monster.
I agree. Glad we didn't pick the superhero movie. So I Married an Axe Murderer, Halloween, 2007.
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Really? You like that movie?
I don't like it, but I certainly don't like 2007's Halloween.
I like that better than So I Married an Axe Murderer. What does it say? That is Tales. It's so dark in here. I got the light shining at me, but I can't see.
Just because there's no place to put this, I just want to tell a quick story.
Go for it.
So I've got a Tumblr page. I love Tumblr. I'm a big fan of Tumblr, even though I'm a 45-year-old man. But nevertheless, I post all of my reviews there on a pretty regular basis. And I got the funniest comment this week from somebody. So I posted my review of F9 again, just to try and drum up interest in that review again. And somebody commented on there saying, "This movie, I hate this movie. Those guys who made this are science deniers." Because apparently he thinks that the people who made Fast and Furious think that a Fiero can go into space. They're science deniers. They don't believe in physics in that movie. Really?
Either way, if he's being serious, it's funny. And if he's making a joke, it's a funny joke. So I'm going. Either way, I love that comment. That's great.
That's great, right? He's either a meta comedy genius or a very troubled human being.
Either way, it works. That's funny. Jules and Jim, you know what that is?
Oh yeah, we that was a classic of this very show.
That's right, we did that. My fault. I remember that now.
We've watched a lot of movies. It's all right.
Wedding Singer.
It's Jules and Jim.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Nicolas Cage's American Beauty.